Opportunities to show learning. In many courses, students spend more time proving what they remember than showing what they can actually do. Traditional assessments like multiple choice tests or essays often measure recall or explanation, but not the practical application of skills. Thinking about your coursework, have you had enough opportunities to demonstrate your learning through action or performance rather than memorization? How might courses provide better ways for you to show, express, and articulate what you can do? Bo, please. Reaction.
Yeah, Leah, this is gonna sound bad for you probably, but I think that this has been one of the biggest differentiators between undergrad work and moving into the postgraduate studies. I really feel like a lot of the undergraduate courses that I took, and this might just be a generalization about my experience, but a lot of those were filled with assessment opportunities that were specifically rote memorization, rapid recall on things, and not really demonstration of new skills or applied knowledge in any way, shape, or form. And I really feel like after I earned my bachelor's degree, going into my master's and working on my doctorate here. I feel like that there's been a fundamental shift in the way that the assessment is deployed and what its purpose actually is, and that does almost I understand that in many of those undergraduate courses a lot of times the faculty members are pressed against the constraints of we have 150 students in one class that we're responsible for. How do we scale the assessment so that it's actually able to be carried out, and then obviously able to be graded by one of those individuals, and that's not always an easy option there. When I moved into my master's work, I felt like everything that I did in every single course, it was much more hands-on, and a lot of times had very high real-world context as well, which made it much more meaningful to me.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Bo. Christy is next on my screen.
I would agree with you 100% there, Bo. I think my undergrad was pretty much the same thing. And it wasn't until master's and then doctorate that you really got the opportunity to do so much more application. I was going to say also opportunities in the IU program, I think started the very first semester. I mean, one of our biggest projects in the first semester, I did a needs analysis for my institution, and I did a learner context analysis for my students. And I was able to choose my context and actually make that not only meaningful to me, but also meaningful to the institution. We actually presented the needs analysis to the provost at the institution, and we're actually seeing a lot of our recommendations that we made with online learning come to fruition now. So it's really, that application and being able to demonstrate those, very authentic learning opportunities. That is one of the things that I've really enjoyed about the program at IU. I feel like it's in a lot of the different classes. In 678, when we were able to create and evaluate a learning module, and that was something that Emily and I worked together on, and we took one of my colleagues' online learning modules and basically took the whole class and kind of added different more interactive or more student engaged type of activities, and she has adopted a lot of those. So that opportunity to demonstrate learning, that is, I think, what faculty really should let students do. But again, like Bo was saying, I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity at the undergrad level. It's something that definitely at the master's or doctoral level, that's much more common.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, we talked about this linear education in K-12 versus, something more elaborate happening later in life. That's very, very insightful, very important for our education. Yes. Emily, please, next.
Hi, yes, ditto to what Christy and Bo have said. Being in the same program, we've had very similar experiences. But I will say in my undergraduate classes, once I got into my junior and senior year, I had some great professors who allowed us to do reflection on our learning. And I felt like that was a really good opportunity to show my learning as well as to really have time to process what I learned, how I was going to apply it. And then my undergraduate was in early childhood education. So a lot of times we were learning how to write lesson plans. Well, they took that a step further and had us actually teach the lessons. And then we had to do a reflection on that. So I think just having that real world, authentic application so that it has meaning is helpful.
Thank you. Samantha.
Yes. Um, so I have had plenty of diverse educational background experiences with degrees in both STEM and the humanities. And I can definitely tell you that both tracks very different, obviously, in my more STEM sciencey classes. It might professors might not have thought it feasible to do anything but a multiple choice test in a 400-person lecture, right? Where we're teaching very technical concepts. And then in humanities, maybe there's a little bit more wiggle room, but I still think there's a way. So across both disciplines, I've still mostly only had chances to apply what I was learning in either labs or field work. And even then, the connection between the work I was doing and the skills or knowledge I was supposed to be developing often felt disjointed. And I think courses could do a lot more to help students demonstrate learning through action, like everyone's been mentioning, rather than just recall. And even in these like large lecture classes, that could still look like real world projects that mirror the skills or thinking we're meant to practice. Collaborative problem solving that reflects the way these skills are used outside the classroom, or even opportunities to teach or explain concepts to others. And even beyond the classroom, there should be more structured opportunities to connect what we're learning with places we can actually apply it to, like research positions, jobs, volunteer work, or partnerships with community organizations. Too often, people earn a degree or learn the material, but have no network or support system to put those skills into practice, even when they're motivated to do so. Linking classroom learning to real world context not only reinforces understanding, but also helps students build the confidence and connections needed to truly use what they've learned. And kind of going back to, because I see there's discussions of class size and the chat and feasibility. I really truly believe even in STEM heavy courses or lectures with hundreds of students, a more flexible type of assessment can still be done. It may be more work, but it is worthwhile and impactful work. I also think that's why we need to move away from kind of these like models and systems that put so much pressure on educators to do everything themselves, right? We need more teaching assistants. How do we get more teaching assistants? We get more funding for education. We actually pay our teaching assistants and make them want to be part of our process and our classroom atmosphere. It's really about like building this system of community and mutual support so that we can really, give back and teach our students in a way that is meaningful and have the resources and provide educators the resources where they feel like they can do that without doing everything themselves as well.
Right on. Thank you very much. You're right. A lot of work is done by the teachers on their own, alone. Absolutely. Leah, could you please?
I also wanted to add on to the discussion happening in the chat about class sizes. I think a lot of what this discussion comes down to is resources and time. In my first year, the vast majority of my introductory classes were upwards of 1,500 students. And, you know, regular classrooms can't even accommodate that number of students. And so we ended up taking classes in the graduation hall. And so it's really just not an environment that's really conducive to properly measuring student learning. And it often comes down to multiple choice tests and even for essays, at my university at least, and I think at a lot of larger institutions, TAs, they get a maximum of maybe 10 minutes to grade each student's essay. That's 8 pages each. And so it feels like we're more so assessed on our ability to follow structures and instructions rather than actually making a meaningful argument. And that limits the amount of time that students get for deeper feedback on the actual content of our work and what really helps us to grow as students. And so I think the discussion about, yes, 1,500 students, it's pretty standard for introductory courses at my university, actually. So I think that the assessment of learning and sort of the discussion we're having today also needs to be understood in larger structural contexts and talking about how budgets are allocated and the need to push for more funding for higher education with a focus on student learning rather than putting all of the responsibility on the instructor themselves.
That's right. Excellent points. Thank you so much, Leah. Let me see here. Bo, just very quickly, you mentioned more funding in the chat. What exactly do you mean? What would you like to fund, actually? If you were to make a list, wish list.
This was more kind of a response to the some of the funding issues that are taking place currently at not just at IU, but at Purdue as well here in Indiana. A lot of our programs have been either slashed or merged together. So I didn't have a wish list other than just not having that happen anymore.
Mm.
And he's talking more than one program. We're talking 200 to 300 programs in the state of Indiana. So it's not a small thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, of course. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, the topic of funding is just absolutely enormous. I just really thought, you know, maybe something that has to do with specifically with student learning. I
Yeah.
believe Leah just mentioned the fact that teachers work alone. What funding, you know, what would extra money, what difference would that make, if any?
I could see it creating opportunities where the learning environments, the student class sizes are much more manageable, especially at the undergraduate level. It's not feasible. I did send Leah a direct message and I said 15, did you say 1,500 students? I've never heard of a lecture or any course, you know, having that many in an in-person, you know, setting. Dr. Bonk made a comment just a little bit ago about the MOOCs, and he taught a course with 4,000 students. It's a little bit different, I think, maybe in a distance ed situation like that versus an in-person situation where you know that you have to have an overflow room, it sounded like, to house all of the students there, and that's not structuring the learning environment in a way that's conducive for teaching or learning to occur in an effective manner.
Well,
That's right.
to be honest, Bo, a long time ago when Indiana was looking for places to see where large section classes were taught, we drove up to Purdue. Purdue was a place teaching their engineering courses, their computer science courses. Purdue's known for these large classes, so it's not just UCLA, Toronto, but it's all around the North America. And we have to find ways to facilitate learning, assess learning, evaluate learning, share learning in these large classes. They're going to persist. There's just a point, but maybe, Jerry, we need to move on to question 5.
Yes. Just a second. Yeah, we have question number 4. Still, I believe Sam and they still want to make comments. Let's keep the discussion going. Thank you. Yes. We'll move on to the next question in just a second. Sam.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it really brief, but just to answer your question about funding, since I brought it up, there's so many things I can think of, and it's not something I can do in like 1 minute, but really, we just need to restructure our system. And that isn't just gonna work by us talking amongst ourselves. It's about also bringing in policymakers, advocating, actually being out there in community and working with community to see the type of classroom environment we want to see. And, everyone's right. 1,000-person classroom is a lot to expect of any instructor. But why are we expecting that? It's because we are refusing to pay for either more instructors or more assistants within that classroom to serve kind of as like mini instructors, right? I just took a class actually at UCLA that had almost 700 people in it. And I can tell you, everyone left that class. Well, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but a lot of the people I spoke to really felt like they gained and learned something because there was like almost 20 TAs in that class, right? So they were each serving their own purpose and working in small groups and were assigned a certain like cohort within the classroom of itself. So yeah, if we're gonna be turning our small classrooms into these larger systems, then we need to start treating it like it's a system and delegating tasks like you would a living, breathing system.